everyone. We are in a new anchorage for us off Isla San Jose, and this is one of the reasons why we love to cruise. It's beautiful here. After filling our fuel tank and jerry cans at the Marina Costa Baja fuel dock, we began our voyage just after midday. The Costa Baja entrance is just after the first set of buoys in the La Paz Channel, which are located just south of the petroleum unloading pier at Punta Prieta. On this day, we passed under the bows of the tanker Centenario, which was preparing to get underway. As we headed north, Lee and John began running the water maker to test the new membrane and see if fresh water could be produced in spite of a malfunctioning gauge. For the initial first use, the membrane needs to be run for an hour to flush out the preserving chemicals. That hour took us well on the way to the island of Espiritu Santo, and on our way, we received a visit from a pod of dolphins playing off our bow. It seemed to augur a special blessing of good fortune, and that we would witness other amazing sights and beauty in the magical Sea of Cortez. Our favorite single boat anchorage, El Mesteño, was occupied, so we continued on to Caleta Partida, the anchorage between the two islands of Espiritu Santo and Partida, and it is thought to be the former caldera of a prehistoric volcano. In episode 85, we show footage from the eastern side of the narrow and shallow strip of land that connects the two islands together. This was our first time to stay in the Caleta, and it was a peaceful, quiet night. The next morning, we were eager to begin the next leg of our northward journey. Our destination was Punta Salinas on Isla San Jose, which, according to our cruising guide, Sea of Cortez, would not offer good wind abatement for the coming norther, but we would be protected from the waves, and there was an abandoned salt mine to explore. When we first moved to the boat, everyone said Sean and Heather's book was the best guide, and now we also endorse that recommendation. However, as with all guidebooks, one has to exercise one's own judgment, and as we neared our proposed destination, it looked too rough in the northwest wind, and we elected to cross the channel to the all-weather anchorage of San Evaristo on the Baja side. In San Evaristo, there is a cove tucked just behind the point. We had anchored in this location previously and found the surrounding steep terrain to cause the wind to gust in different directions. This time, we elected to anchor in the main anchorage, where the wind blew steadily from one direction, and which La Brisa seems to prefer. We waited out the norther for 2 days, and during this time, the kayak was in frequent use, as well as the dinghy for a group outing to the local restaurant, only to find the owner had closed up for the day due to a family illness. The third morning in Evaristo dawned calm, and we motored north about 8 miles, crossing the channel to Isla San Jose to anchor at Monglei Solo, which is a fair-weather anchorage. We anchored in the corner where the sand shelf extends out sufficiently for a boat to safely anchor before it drops off into deep water. Here, The sand shelf is narrow, and Water Dog is in 70 feet of water. Blondie's friend Floki jumped out to visit Blondie. He then swam back to Water Dog, where Jack picked him up. Jack chose to anchor a little further south, around the corner, where he feels the protection is better and there is less drop-off. For the first time since we have owned La Brisa, someone has fished off of her. John, an avid fisherman, caught fish at Monglei solo. 3 grunts and a triggerfish. We had fantastic fish tacos that night. The following day, we briefly rolled out the Genoa with a whisper of a southerly breeze, and John put out the fishing lines. He caught a larger fish, one which he was not familiar with, but which, when barbecued, was delicious. On our departure from Monglei solo, we enjoyed the sun on our backs and a bowl of oatmeal while heading into the contrary wind. We ended up motoring the entire distance to Timbabiche and enjoyed a late afternoon on the beach. As the sun was heading down towards the tops of the Sierra de la Giganta mountain range, Water Dog came in, and Blondie and Floki enjoyed some more playtime. The following morning was again calm, and we motored north. Just past Punta San Telmo, John observed what appeared to be an oasis, with a clump of palms growing in a canyon. There was no name for the canyon in the cruiser's guide or on the Navionics chart, and at John's urging, we decided to creep in close to the canyon and check it out. Lee and I stationed ourselves near the bow to watch the water, and John took the wheel. We came closer and closer, and according to our depth sounder, dropped the hook at 35 feet. According to the chart, we were in 1 foot of water. The available charts for the sea are not entirely reliable, and one does have to pay attention for possible shoals in addition to incorrect depths. The dinghy was lowered and we all went ashore. Our arrival disturbed the vultures that appeared to be feeding on something dead. The object of their attentions was a dead sea turtle. The palms formed a dense, impenetrable thicket, and as we walked further up the watercourse, we came across abandoned buildings and several concrete water troughs, one which bore the year of 2002. The well, approximately 30 feet deep, was dry, and we were impressed with the neatly inlaid rocks that lined the well. John came across a graveyard with a surprising number of graves for what appeared to be a small rancho. One of the graves bore the date of April 1989. There were no inscriptions on the other graves, and one can only wonder about the life and the occupants of this small community. With the anchorage so poor, it was obvious the area was not a fish camp, but focused instead on the raising of livestock. In the wash, I came across the skeleton of a bovine with a perfect skull. Hollywood couldn't have done better for setting the stage of this dry, sad place with so many reminders of the frailty of life. In my mind, I called this place Los Muertos, the dead. Similar to the bay further south, Bahía de los Muertos. The trip has been going so well. The only fly in the ointment is the water maker. The membrane blew out when the pressure was set too high because of the malfunctioning gauge. So no fresh water except at the dock. In the next video, our voyage continues, and we hope you join us in our journey north. So, until then.